Cheers, y'all.
Well.
Man, that was a good one, but Bruce Stark got to it before you. He actually put
he?
well right
Yeah,
up here as soon as he logged in.
I'm really hoping that Bruce will record. You just do this like on your phone if you have the little voice recorder thing. Just record a well and text it to one of us, and we'll let Bruce do the well.
We need to just have all of our folks do that.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine radio and podcast program known internationally as Smokin' and Toastin'. Yes, we are the world-famous Smokin' and Toastin'. The show's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. And Ian, today's show is number 199, meaning that we can now finally and honestly say we are halfway to 200. Yeah. So 200th show is next week. We mentioned this before, but just in case anybody's catching up on this for the first time, we will not be doing our big bicentennial celebration where we invite everybody and everybody brings their bottles.
We'll do our bicentennial in exile at some point in time.
Once it's safe to do so. Once we're all feeling okay with getting together in that kind of a big group again, we'll do it and it'll be fun. But it'll just be delayed. Instead, we have next week's show will be just a more personal thing. It'll just be Ian and me, but we'll be talking about some of our favorite things we remember from the show. Ian will be bringing the beers next week. How long has it been since you were allowed to bring all the beers?
I think I lost your trust. I think I finally broke the trust.
Yes, it was
when I brought the Malort.
Yes,
the second time.
That was it. So it's been a while.
When you got Malorted twice, I think I broke that.
But Ian has carte blanche. He can bring all barley wines if he wants to.
You remember
whatever.
the 100th episode when we invited everybody and everyone we were there for like 4 hours and everyone got good and toasty, right?
Yes, I do remember this.
So the
Lots
beers
of
I'm
Ubers.
bringing next week, I'm going to try and accomplish that
in just one hour show.
1.5 hours.
Okay,
yes.
good. Well, I will be prepared with transportation. Thank you for the warning.
Right.
This is show number 199. We are bringing good news for cigar lovers, and here to help us deliver and celebrate some of that is our very own Smokin' and Toastin' legal expert, Trey Boring. Trey, welcome back to the show. It's nice to have you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Trey is not only going to be bringing us up to date on the very latest, and there's been really, really good news this week in our ongoing fight to keep cigar smoker rights alive and where they should be. So there's been really good progress. There was some we talked about last week. It's gone even further this week. Trey will explain that. And then in addition...
I'm totally amazed to hear that there's good news because I got to tell you, when we report this stuff from time to time, I get just so discouraged because it's always dumber and dumber and dumberer.
Right.
Yes, I said dumberer. It's the amount of ridiculousness that the government can put onto cigars is absolutely unfathomable to me.
Well, my thought is, and we'll be talking about a particular judge who issued a ruling this week and how important that is for cigar manufacturers, for cigar retailers, and for cigar fans.
I'm super excited to hear about this.
And my recommendation, and I'm thinking about writing a letter to the president, my recommendation is that this judge should be put in charge of the whole coronavirus effort. Because he's the first guy that's made any sense
he actually
in
makes
this whole
sense.
thing throughout the entire time. So we need some of that. Don't you agree? We need
logic.
We need some of that logic.
Common sense
nice.
and logic rarely survives bureaucracy.
Oh, I know.
It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. So I want to mention, we'll get into this in the show too. In addition to his duties with Cigar Rights of America and his regular 9-to-5 job, Trey also is a representative for Cigars for Warriors, which is one of our absolute favorite causes here. This is the organization that gathers and ships cigars to our men and women in the service who are stationed overseas in different places where it may or may not even be possible for them to walk down the street to a cigar store and buy anything to smoke. So this is a really big deal, and it's a great way to honor those who are in the service who are fans of cigars and would love to have some and can't get them. So we'll talk about all of that in just a few moments. Our show is brought to you by mycigarshirts.com. It's a great new site that has a lot of cool shirts for cigar lovers and cigar aficionados. If you are one of those or you know one of those and would like to find a gift for them, it's a great place to go.
My favorite shirt on there says, "You can't hurry up and smoke a cigar."
Yeah, I wonder where they got that
Love
from.
That.
It's
like a great idea.
It is a site that is definitely supportive of and very familiar with smoking and toasting. I'm just wondering if they may have heard that somewhere.
They may have.
Anyway, it's got shirts like that and a lot of other really cool things. One of my favorite ones, it has like a checklist, and it says Cuban, Dominican, Honduran, Nicaraguan, all of the above, and then all of the above is checked. I think that's a great shirt. So anyway, check them all out. It's mycigarshirts.com. They start under $20, which I don't know if you bought any T-shirts online lately, but that's a pretty good price. Like some places are $30 and $35 for the T-shirt. So
yep.
Oh yeah.
So definitely worth checking out. Well, it is going to be a very interesting show today. I think we are going to be tasting. We're kind of down in the South with today's tastings. We have 2 from Texas and 1 from New Orleans. We'll be tasting NOLA Brewing Company.
Nolans,
yes.
Thank you.
NOLA from Nolans, Darlin, we've tasted a number of their other beers before, some IPAs and some bigger beers. Today we'll be tasting, and I'm really curious to see how this is, their blonde ale. It doesn't even have a fancy name. It's just NOLA Blonde Ale.
Wow.
And I'm really, really excited about that because I've never tasted any beer from these guys that I didn't think was just fantastic.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
So they're awesome. Then we'll be tasting from a brewery from Dallas called Steam Theory Brewing.
Okay.
An IPA that's called Hops Against Humanity. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago that I was going to be bringing this one in, and I have been able to keep myself from opening it and drinking it at the house. So, because it's been in my fridge for several weeks now. So I'm excited for us to be able to taste that too. I have no idea. I wonder if by the name it may be something that I really like.
You've
and you
played
guys
Cards
don't,
Against Humanity.
Oh,
I'm sure, right?
Yeah. Like greatest game ever.
I love the twisted sense of humor that pops out in that.
It's just sometimes I will say this, and I believe we may have mentioned this on a previous show, but just as a public service, we can caution you: do not play Cards Against Humanity with your parents.
Yeah, no,
it's not a good idea. That
sounds bad.
And then I was really excited to get my hands on this one, Ian, when we had the guys from Urban South Brewing on the show a couple of weeks ago. They were one of the Houston breweries that got involved in doing the Black is Beautiful Imperial Stout, which benefits Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. And he explained to us, our guest on the show explained to us that they basically take the basic recipe and then they maybe tweak it just a little bit for each brewery. But the beer originated at a brewery in San Antonio called Weathered Souls Brewing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We have their original Black is Beautiful Imperial Stout today.
That's awesome.
So that's something we will look forward to.
Did you find that locally?
I can't now remember where I got it. I think I may have ordered it online. But I know you can find it in San Antonio. Yeah. So it really just depends if the place where you shop, stocks beers from Weathered Souls. If they don't, you should ask them because from what our friend at Urban South was telling us, this is a really remarkable brewery, and they're doing some amazing things.
Yeah, he said the original recipe was outstanding to begin with.
So that's the one we'll be trying today, so I'm really stoked about that.
So fun.
Also, we have not done a gin on the show in quite some time. So today we'll be sampling something from the...
This begs the question.
Yes?
What do you do with the drunken Englishman?
There you go. Or in this case, what is someone from Holland? What are they called? A Hollander?
I don't know.
What do you do with a drunken Hollander? From Holland will be a drunken Dutchman. There you go. Drunken Dutchman. From the Odner de Boomsjes distillery.
That's easy for you to say.
I know I massacred that, but at least I tried. We'll be doing their Gastro Gin, and I'll just show this one to the camera. We'll be getting to it later.
Gin?
Gastro Gin. It's a small distillery in Holland.
It does say Dutch Dry Gin.
Dutch Dry Gin. So we'll be.
I love the label on that.
Yeah, the label's great. We'll show that to the camera a little more when we get to to that segment. So do want to thank, real quickly, it's been a good month for experts here on the show. Our guest last week was our new tequila expert, Liliana Rodriguez.
She was awesome.
If you did not catch last week's show, you got to go back and listen to it because Liliana was delightful, wasn't she?
Absolutely
great
fantastic.
show. Great show.
She was so good, and we had people on the comments saying, I've never learned so much about tequila before. It was just the whole way she presents it. She's so enthusiastic and wonderful. So thank you, Liliana, for being on last week, and everybody go back and check out that episode if you can. In addition to the legal stuff we'll be talking about today, Budweiser wants to become Utah's state beer. So we'll examine that.
Utah,
of all places, right? So we'll examine that. We'll talk a little bit about.
Can't wait to hear that story.
The folks at Austin Beer Works have come up with a very creative way to keep their tap room open. So we'll
Nice.
share that, and we love Austin Beer Works.
Yes.
We've had their beers on here before, and if we have time, we'll get into retail's hottest cigar brands of 2020. We mentioned it last week, but we didn't get a chance to get to the story. So these are the brands that are selling the best and being asked for the most at retail in 2020. And there's been a little shifting since last year, so it'll be
that shifts
fun
around
to look at.
due to public taste shifting and what's new
That's
and those
right.
kind of things, and just
So, before I forget, this Saturday
Saturday only
at 2 p.m. We've
2 p.m.
We've always started at 1, but we need to start at 2 this
This
week.
is going to be more exciting if you keep using like the monster truck
Yeah.
voice like I'm doing. Here.
So Saturday.
There you go.
Okay.
Saturday.
Smoking and Toasting will present another of our, and we haven't done this in a couple of months now, our virtual smoke fests on Zoom. So what you will want to do is go to the Smoking and Toasting Facebook page. We'll have an invite there, and it'll tell you exactly how to
With a link,
to log in. It'll have a link that you can go and launch Zoom, and we spare every expense here at Smoking and Toasting.
Absolutely.
So what that
Bring your own cigars.
What that generally means is that you will we'll need to restart the chat every 40 minutes once Zoom kicks us all off. But that's okay. We're all good sports about it, It's all good. If somebody wants to sponsor our Zoom events, we'll spring for the premium account, but otherwise it's just us smoking cigars and drinking. We can all restart every 40 minutes.
It's pretty casual, and if it's you know what, if it's a pain in the butt for you to restart it, it's really not that big of a pain in the butt.
Right. Hopefully you're just sitting there enjoying a cigar and something good to drink anyway.
Yeah.
So
you would have to hit 2, maybe 3 keys on your computer to make that happen.
Exactly. So hopefully it's easy enough and we can do it. But they're always fun. We have a very interesting group of people, and everybody shares what they're smoking, what they're drinking.
You don't even have to smoke a cigar to chime in and just have fun.
That's right. In fact, I remember there was one of the virtual smoke fests we did where Adam was smoking something entirely different.
Very, very different.
So anyway, that's going to be a lot of fun, and it's this Saturday, 2 p.m. Central Time. And it'll be on Zoom. I'll have all that stuff posted for you on the Facebook page so you can find us nice and easy. So a great week, Ian, despite the fact that I think you had a little mountain bike incident you were telling me about before.
Yes.
Do you want to share that with us, or
Well,
do you just want to go right to the cigar?
I went to Spider Mountain this last weekend, and man, I was having one of those days where I rode awesome, and I should have known. But I was wearing my full armor and everything
That's
like
good.
that.
That's
so
good.
Otherwise, I'd be beat up a little more. But I trashed a wall ride. They have a Texas flag wall ride, and I hit it, and my tire slid straight down from about 4 or 6 feet, and I hit the ground. I weigh about 250. That hits the ground hard.
That's a big boom. Yeah.
And I ended up giving myself a sprained ankle and a little bit of a sprained wrist, which, by the way, still allowed me to play guitar.
Oh, that's good. So it wasn't sprained too bad then. That's good.
Yeah, no, not
that's
too
livelihood
bad.
there.
Yeah. So and I tumbled down the trail a bit, and then I went and sat down and let everybody ride for the last 3 hours that the park was open.
What you should have done is make sure somebody took a picture of you and the bike just kind of lying in a heap that we could have posted on the show.
I totally trashed the derailleur on my bike.
Yeah.
It's gone. I'm going to need a new derailleur, a new chain.
Okay.
So if anybody out there, wants to sponsor that for me, just send
that's
it
right.
to
That's right. Ian's mountain bike adventures for smoking and
It's a
toasting.
SRAM GX, but if you want to upgrade me to XO1, that's fine too. Send it right here to RFC Media.
Sponsored by, I don't know, Halliburton. Somebody.
There you go. Or the SRAM Axis Group. That's fine too. That's the wireless shifting. That'd be fine.
Yeah, that'll work.
It's expensive.
How about cigars? Do you smoke anything interesting this week?
So I did. last week, I was at my brew club meeting, and one of the guys there gave me a cigar, and I hadn't had it before. I'd seen it, and I was aware of it, but I hadn't had it. It was a Factory Smokes.
Okay.
By Drew Estate.
Yeah, this is kind of their more like generic.
It's not kind of. It's very budget.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, budget AF.
Okay.
And it was a Maduro, so I was like, okay, I hadn't tried this before, and I smoked it.
And?
I enjoyed it.
There you go. So
I thought to myself, since you did that, I should probably go ahead and review one for the show. So I had one this morning.
Okay.
And here's what I got from it. Now, this is not influenced by a previous cigar and beers and things like that and hanging out and not paying attention. So I actually stopped and paid attention to this. So this was the Robusto Maduro 5x54. Appearance, medium brown, rustic, veiny, medium firm with some soft spots, a little bit leathery kind of wrapper. Okay, not a bad looking cigar, but certainly doesn't look like a Padron Anniversario or
exactly, yeah, a little rustic.
The pre-light sniff on earth, barnyard, fermented hay, maybe a little tea leaf and a little sweetness in it. Not an amazing smelling cigar, but not bad smelling, you know. The pre-light draw, I used a punch. It had a light draw on it. Not bad. Sweet mocha, slightly sweet on the lips, a little cappuccino. This cigar, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about this ahead of my tasting. This cigar was pretty simple. It didn't do a lot of different things, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
The initial light, burst of smoke, tangy, slightly young tobacco flavor that almost immediately goes away. So there's a little... I'm sure you've experienced this before in cheaper cigars where you light it up and it's got that kind of a green or a young tobacco.
Yeah, kind of a young tobacco flavor. Yeah,
it's a little or a raw kind of flavor maybe or whatever.
It's not bad. It just isn't as mature and rich.
It's definitely one of those flavors that you recognize. And if you have a cigar that tastes like that, it's a little bit of a red flag. In this one, it just came out right at the beginning and went away almost immediately.
Good.
The first third of this, uncomplicated, sweet cappuccino, dark chocolate with a tangy, fresh-cut lumber finish.
I like it.
It's like sawdust, that kind of wood smell.
It's a very pleasant wood smell.
And again, not necessarily the best wood flavor, but not bad. You know, kind of a nice smell. Solid ash, perfect burn. Like, that was amazing. The introduction of pepper to the flavor profile around the edges of the palate in the second third of this was kind of a nice little surprise. That actually had some development. Same flavor persists all the way through. Smokes a little bit fast. I noticed I got to that second third pretty quick.
It may be short filler.
Yeah,
short filler will smoke a little faster.
On a cheaper cigar, but not ridiculous. It didn't smoke hot.
Right.
It actually smoked well.
That's the thing. You don't mind if it goes a little faster as long as it doesn't.
I was drinking coffee with it by this point in time. Goes great with coffee. I had no problems having this as a morning cigar. Medium body with a little bit lighter feel. I would definitely say it's a medium cigar, but it didn't smoke fully medium. It was a little more on the mild. So if you're a mild cigar smoker, don't be afraid of this because it's a medium cigar with a little bit lighter feel overall. Solid ash, perfect burn. The last third of this started out with more of the same. It really just did that one thing. Like, once the pepper showed up, nothing really changed. There was a little bit of pepper in there, sweetness, a little cappuccino, all those things going on. At the very end of this, about the last 1.5 inches, 2 inches of the cigar, the taste turned bitter and was not good.
Okay, but that's the last inch and a half.
But that was the last 1.5 inches of this cigar. So I'm going to tell you, price to quality, 5.5 right now. Even with all those things, the lack of a development in a cigar, I like the flavors. And the fact that the very end of the cigar got bitter and kind of nasty, it cost me $1.99.
$1.99.
$1.99.
And worth every penny and more.
This is going to be one of my new lawnmower cigars.
It sounds like a great lawnmower dog walker.
It's very smokable.
Yeah.
And just know that when you get to the end, it's going to get a little bitter and put it out before then.
Yeah.
At $1.99, that's okay.
Wow.
Right.
Very, very cool. Very cool. Trey, you mentioned you smoked something interesting this week as well.
I did. Well, if you remember back, Tatuaje came out with that Mexico a while back.
Yeah.
That one. And that was limited release, kind of one of my favorite limited releases they had. Well, the ME2 is around now, which is basically their Mexico Experiment 2. And I happen to be in Phoenix, Arizona, oddly enough. The one place I'm having to travel right now for work is Phoenix, and Went by Big Sticks there in Mesa, Arizona.
Mesa, yep.
Which is a great supporter of Cigars for Warriors and CRA, and but they had the ME2s, and I will tell you that it's been so long since I smoked one of the original Mexicos. I can't tell you if it tastes the same. I could tell you my enjoyment level was the same.
Yes.
And it was
That's the
very
most
good.
Part, right?
The interesting thing about it is your quality to price, right? Everything from the Robusto to the Churchill is priced the same. It's depending on where you're at in the country, it's $9 to $10-ish bucks, right? Depending on your state tax, right? So I smoked a Robusto because I'm a Robusto guy, and I would probably say the quality to price was maybe around a 3.5, 4. Still very good, but it just,
Maybe,
and what
maybe
changed?
Not living up to a $10 price.
Right.
Is that
What changed? What changed is when I smoked the Toro, which is also a size I like, and that to me was 5.5. I mean, it was
really?
well worth the. But it's the element of I'm smoking the same tobacco, the same blend in a different size, which gives you a completely different experience.
It really does, yeah.
But the element is I would spend that and more on the Toro size, but they've got them priced the same. When you walk into the shop, it's all the same price point. It's weird.
So the message here is get the Toro, not the Robusto, right?
I would say.
Yes.
It's actually amazing how much difference the shape of the cigar with the same blend will actually affect the overall flavor profile.
My current favorite cigar right now is the Bella Artez from A.J. Fernandez.
That's a great cigar.
It's a great cigar. But if you can find the short Churchill, it is just that much better than the other sizes. Yeah. The other sizes are all really good because I've tried them all. But the short Churchill, there's just something about that particular way it's blended. It's just one click better than the others, and it's my favorite. In fact, it's one of those things that when I find it, I buy it because it's not always in stock everywhere. So somebody else probably knows this.
Now, what is this beautiful thing that you brought me?
Well, I brought you actually what I'm going to talk about that I had this week. It's the Camacho B.G. Meyer Standard Issue. It's a Churchill, which I believe is the only size that this was released in. They do have some B.G. Meyer Standard Issue 10s out there, but I think this is the only full-size cigar. The 10s are the smaller kind of minis. So a little bit of background in this cigar. The Camacho brand was basically brought into existence by Christian Arroyo. Christian is the brother of Justo that we got to spend time with when we were in Honduras. His name is widely known as a really good blender of cigars, and he established that Camacho brand as a very reputable, very good line of cigars. And then he sold it to Davidoff.
Yep.
And when Davidoff bought it, which was a number of years ago, they basically almost immediately just screwed up the brand from the get-go. They used inferior tobacco on it. They used poor rollers. The quality went down the tubes, and a lot of cigar fans stopped smoking it. So Davidoff realized, and Davidoff, they're a quality cigar maker, so they realized they needed to do something, and they essentially relaunched the entire line a couple of years ago. And began to turn things around. The quality improved substantially. Both of us have talked about Camacho cigars, in the last year here on the show that we smoked.
Made a big difference.
And really enjoyed. So they got the whole line back on track. So when they were doing this relaunch, they also released something called, and it doesn't even have any Camacho branding on it at all, but it's part of the Camacho line. They also released a cigar called the B.G. Meyer Standard Issue. It was supposed to have a sort of a Hollywood movie studio theme to the cigar. And they even made this video with these good-looking bohemian people riding around in muscle cars and lighting their cigars with a blowtorch. And it was kind of Mad Max and way over the top. There wasn't any dialogue, but the music was pretty cool on it. Anyway, the cigar was a total bomb. And I don't mean the flavor. I mean, it did not sell. Apparently, the people they thought they were targeting it to weren't interested, and everybody else thought it looked a little weird. And while most of the Camacho line did regain a great deal of success, the B.G. Meyer kind of flopped. So I picked up a box of these at a great price online because they're not making them anymore, and they're getting rid of the stock of the ones that they did. So It sports a Nicaraguan wrapper and Dominican and Nicaraguan fillers. Pre-light on this was earthy, had some very rich leather notes to it. I used a punch. I lit it up and got that initial Nicaraguan kind of pepper and spice burst that I was expecting. I also picked up a lot of wood and leather notes in the first third. And then when it got to the second third of the cigar, this really nice kind of coffee and vanilla bean flavor started to emerge, which I really, really liked. Cedar and leather continued all the way through this. Very nice complexity. The construction was decent. They, had some of the places where the veins of the leaf would burn a little slower from time to time. I think I may have tended it once during the, but I wouldn't have even probably had to do that. It probably would have smoked just fine. Anyway, I want to mention plenty of smoke and a very rich, creamy kind of smoke that this put out. Definitely medium to full, maybe just slightly more medium than full, but it was in between there somewhere. Which again, that's an area I really like in terms of cigars. Overall, very enjoyable. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I brought you one, and I'll be interested to see what you think of it.
Awesome.
But here's the deal: at the original $10 price point for this cigar, I'd probably give the B.G. Meyer maybe a 4.5. It's good, but there's a lot of really outstanding cigars it'd be competing with at $10 for your money. And I just don't know if I could say you get your money's worth out of that compared to, like a Romeo and Julieta by AJ or something that's right in that $9-10 price range. It was not quite as good as that, but here's the thing. I didn't pay $10 for it. I bought a box from Holtz, and the single cigar price comes to $3.
Wow.
Price to quality, a 7.5. I haven't had a $3 cigar this good in forever. And so it just goes to show you the way the price to quality works, because had it been $10, it'd have gotten a little less than a 5, which 5 means you get what you pay for. But at 3, oh man, I'm telling you,
$3 a
Holtz
cigar,
has these on sale, and I encourage you to go and buy a box of them while they last, because you're going to get your money's worth and more if you like medium to full cigars with a little bit of that Nicaraguan flavor.
Nice.
So highly recommend it. At this price, highly, highly, highly recommend it. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and do some tasting. We're going to talk about some of the awesome legal news that Trey has to share with us and get an update on what's happening with Cigars for Warriors, how you can get involved and how you can help. This is Smokin' and Toastin', and we are on show number 199, and we'll be right back. Oh, that's the wrong segment. Welcome back. It's Smokin' and Toastin'. It's show number 199. We have good news for cigar lovers on this show, and our guest is our legal expert and good friend, Trey Boring. Smokin' and Toastin' is brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com. The coolest shirts for cigar fans, all under $20. Grab them for yourself or anybody that you know that loves cigars at MyCigarShirts.com. Ian, as I handed you the first beer that we're going to try on the show today, it's from a brewery we both just love, which is NOLA Brewing from Nolans. And when I handed you the can, you said, "Well, that just looks just like a Miller Genuine Draft."
It looks so Miller Genuine.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna kind of cover it with my hand and hold the can up there and let people see. And then when you turn it around, you see the NOLA on there. It looks very Miller Genuine, though, from a glance.
Yeah. And so that while you open that up and pour us a sample,
I feel like you're suggesting that I open it up and pour.
I think you should open it up and pour us a sample. What do you think? Ooh, nice. That was good. Once again, sparing every expense on sound effects here. The official Smokin' and Toastin'.
It costs us a beer every time.
Well, that's
we
a
do
good point.
Beer opening sound effect.
That's a good point. It's like paying a sound effect royalty. Only we get to drink it.
Correct.
So that's a good thing. While you're pouring that, Ian, I want to share with you a story about Big Beer. It's not Miller who make the genuine draft that you speak of, but it is Budweiser and our good friends, which I say in quotation marks, at Anheuser-Busch.
They're all about the people.
Budweiser wants to become the state beer of Utah. Utah already has a state animal. They do have a state folk dance, but apparently they do not have a state beer. And so Budweiser wants to become their first state beer, and they're making this major marketing push. Now, I don't know, and I don't know if it mentions it here in the story I haven't read. Oh, yeah, this is. If you're wondering why Utah, it's apparently to commemorate Budweiser's first foray into the state, because Utah has recently increased the allowable alcohol content for beer to be sold in grocery stores and bars. It used to be you could only get 3.2 beer in Utah. Now you can get 5% if it's sold in grocery stores and bars. I think you could go to the breweries.
What is the standard Budweiser? 4.2,
I think it's in the fours. Yeah, it's in the fours. So in 2019, Budweiser became one of the first full-strength beers to be sold in Utah, and they actually did an unforgettable, the article says, Clydesdale-led funeral to lay the 3.2 ABV beer law to rest. If you didn't hear about it, they apparently hosted it last Halloween with a ghoulish group of pallbearers and did their thing. To me, I read this with some interest and kind of laughed about it, because to me it just emphasizes the fact that at Anheuser-Busch, it is all about marketing and PR.
Yes.
It's not about how good the beer is. It never has been.
Let me ask you this: like, their marketing's so good, who didn't want one of those giant Budweiser mirrors to go with their dogs playing pool tapestry?
Oh yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean,
those things go together.
They really do. They really do. And if I had one, I might still hang the damn thing up.
That's right. Because it looks so cool.
Even though it's Budweiser. But honestly, they've always had great marketing. Yeah. Well, up until the Dilly and the King and all
bully
that
campaign.
Yeah, but through the years they've always had great marketing. But I just wish they'd concentrate a little more on the beer.
Wait a second, you like flavor?
I do.
Shame on you.
I do like flavor, and I see you've already taken a sample of our NOLA
I've
Amber.
taken a few samples because I do like flavor.
Is there some flavor?
This is delicious.
This
is absolutely delightful beer right here.
Mm-hmm.
The outstandingness of this beer is that it's just damn good.
It's got this wonderful finish to it.
There's a little sweetness.
It's got a little sweetness, and I don't normally look for sweetness in a beer, but this works.
It's a blonde ale with a really malty finish.
Yeah.
And then after the swallow, at the end of the finish, you get a little bit of that crispness from the hops in there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a real hop forward beer.
No.
Mm-mm.
There's a little hop on the nose, but mostly malt.
Yeah, it's got a maltiness, and the sweetness is almost like a malted milk ball sweetness.
Yes, and it's very
Yeah.
doughy smelling. Though,
Yeah,
like when have you ever driven by? I know it's like Sunbeam Bread, but you drive by there off of Washington. It smells so good. That fresh bread smell. This has that kind of thing.
I grew up near San Antonio, and we used to actually, in high school, when we'd drive into town, because I lived a little south of town, we'd drive into town. One of the things we liked to do was drive by the Buttercrust Bakery and roll the windows down, because it just smelled so amazing.
Yeah. This has that kind of element when you bring it to your nose. That's absolutely outstanding.
I'm going to tell you, this is maybe one of the better ambers that I've ever had. This
has the entire palate covered. Like, it hits you with that nice, crisp, light flavor right at the beginning. Then it goes into malt, and then after the malt finishes, it goes into like this light, crispy hop snap.
And you know how a lot of ambers have that little bit of bitter on the finish? Yeah. That gets completely obscured by this sort of sweet malty thing.
It has the bitter, but the sweetness
it's more
lingers,
in the middle. Yeah, and the sweetness is what lingers.
This is when I see a blonde ale. This is what I want a blonde ale to taste like.
Yeah, this is...
It's got enough characteristics of an ale to keep you very interested.
Right.
But that little bit of crispness is what you would expect from a blonde beer.
And it gives you that refreshing redrinkability.
Yes, and it might not sound like we're describing it as being super refreshing when we're talking about these flavors, but it is.
This
is a great summer beer.
There's a couple made right around the Houston area that are outstanding like this. It comes to mind like Buckle Bunny. They call it cream ale, but cream ale blonde ale is, as far as I can tell, are exactly the same thing. It's a different name for the same thing, but like Buckle Bunny, and then the Bombshell Blonde, which is a little crisper than this.
Yes.
Right. It's not as malty. It doesn't have the little sweet fun that this has, but also a good solid beer.
And I enjoy the St. Arnold Amber, but that has more of what I was talking about a little more of the bitter finish, whereas this one finishes a little more sweet. So I think we've got a window washer coming outside the window if we all are looking distracted. We're trying to see what the hell is going on out there.
You crawl up there and make faces at them.
Yeah, for sure.
Adam, put your butt against the window.
Highly recommended if you can find this anywhere. I believe I bought this one locally, so highly recommended.
Yeah, and in the solid gold can, too.
Yeah, just look for something that looks like a genuine draft but isn't. What does it say there on the back end? Does it tell us anything about the beer?
What it says is we created our flagship beer with New Orleanians. New Orleanians. All right.
Nolensinians?
With New Orleanians in mind. NOLA Blonde is a well-balanced, full-flavored ale brewed for year-round versatility, so whether you're grabbing a sixer to take to a crawfish boil, I could see that going well, or cracking one open on your own front porch, NOLA Blonde is always the right choice. I got to say, it's a great beer.
And so it mentions that this is their flagship beer, which I didn't know that. This may have been the first beer that they came out with, so kudos to them. This is the first time I'd actually seen one, but we'd had so many of their other offerings and liked them that I thought, well, this will be a great one to try.
No, it's hard to go wrong with NOLA. If you're ever in Louisiana and you see NOLA, it's I always grab, when I'm in Louisiana, I always grab a Yingling because Yingling.
Yeah,
but I always like NOLA and Parish.
NOLA, Parish, and Urban South are the ones that come to my mind first. There are some other good ones. Those are the ones that come to my mind first when you're in Louisiana, or if your state, wherever you are, can get beers from Louisiana. Yeah. Those are all most definitely worth trying. Well, that is really, really good stuff. Trey, tell us a little bit about what's going on with Cigars for Warriors. How has the effort been, and has the whole COVID thing slowed down people responding and donating cigars for you guys?
Well, it has, but it's been from the operational perspective, right? We depend very highly on local stores. Donation centers is what they're called. These stores voluntarily sign up with us. They create and maintain their own donation area,
like a box or
a humidor. Generally, it's a humidor, real nice. A lot of them will hang pictures of veterans that shop at the store, or kids and relatives that are serving currently in the military. You know, they make it a big deal, right? It's very much a patriotic display, along with the display for donating to Cigars for Warriors. And we really depend on those shops for the bulk of our donations because of what we'll talk about later with, the FDA and how they've impacted the cigar industry. One of the things they've done is panicked everybody from donating cigars that are manufacturers because there is the FDA have come out and said they don't accept that. That's a free cigar.
Right, and there's a whole problem with them giving away, with people giving away free cigars.
So, with that whole element, our early days, we had a lot of manufacturers would give us overstocks or things, donations for. So now we are very dependent upon the consumer and the stores. And when they had to shut down in March and April, by and large, in many, many states, it certainly impacted our receipts.
Plus, you guys, I know, because we've come out sometimes when you've done some of these events where you would go to a store
Correct.
On a Saturday afternoon or sometime, and you'd be there for several hours kind of highlighting what it is that you do.
Correct.
And sometimes you would do this in conjunction with maybe a cigar promotion that was going on at the store.
Right.
Because I remember Ian and I came out to one place where if we bought a box, and I think Ian and I split a box, and then we got this sampler pack, which was a very easy thing to put right into the donation
Correct.
area. And so those kind of events have probably come to a complete halt.
To a complete halt. And then you add our festivals. We are very big at most of the major festivals. Those have obviously all been canceled.
Yeah.
And so that's generally one of our larger avenues for both cash and cigar donations. So, we've struggled a little bit from the donation perspective. I will say that counter to that, we have also experienced it's picking up now, but we experienced during the bulk of the COVID scare in the March, April, May, June timeframe, our requests from the servicemen and women were also a little bit down, which helped us keep up with what we were coming through. But I think that was led because most of these valiant people that are over there serving overseas were probably a little nervous about getting a package from
I
home.
Can totally understand that.
We also instituted for any donations we've been receiving since the COVID has hit, we quarantine all of our donations for the CDC required 15, 16 days, so that if there happened to be that life of the virus, we're doing what the CDC asks everybody to do, and then we kind of hold them because
give it the time.
I obviously can't take my hand sanitizer and rub it on a cigar. It's not going to work.
It might be kind of fun, but it wouldn't work.
Right. So we've gone through the quarantining, and we've been very very focused on protecting our men and women that receive our cigars. But it has impacted us, and I will say that the Drew Estate Barn Smokers is one good example. That is a set of events that goes around nationwide, where between the donations we get from Drew Estate and the raffles that they allow us to do and the other things to raise money while we're there, that's about $50,000 of our budget every year.
Yeah.
And so
those are all canceled.
And those got all canceled. Now, I will give some publicity to Drew Estate. When they canceled the Barn Smokers, you might have seen the press release come out. They have committed to a record-setting $50,000 donation to Cigars for Warriors.
That's huge.
To help us make up what we're losing. So I'll give my pub to any of the manufacturers. We've got great manufacturing partners, but that one was one that really
that's big
is going to help us out. I mean, that right there could help us as we all are kind of adjusting to the new normal. But
yeah, you mentioned that the barn smokers are canceled for this year. Just this last week, Cigar Aficionado announced that all of their big smokes are canceled for 2020, and the Cigars International Cigar Fest, which is another big one. That's
another huge event of ours that we won't be able to go to. So we're looking, at as the charity continues to grow, because we are pushing 1.2 million cigars shipped. I mean,
that's awesome.
When I was on last year, we talked about we had broken a million and all of those. We're pushing 1.2 million. Even during COVID, we're still sending cigars. It is still the most requested item by a serviceman or woman when they're sitting overseas because it's something they can't get. It's a little flavor of home, and it's the relaxation that comes
they
along.
Desperately need.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That helps. We've been told many times by experts, the act of sitting with your unit and smoking a cigar is probably one of the first lines of defense for PTSD.
I believe it.
And think about what we do. We've had a hard day at work.
Yeah.
I go smoke a cigar, stress washes away.
Decompress.
Right.
Yeah.
And I usually say this when I'm at an event. I tell everybody, I say, you want to think about how important it is for you to donate a cigar. You and I get that relaxation, and we've had a hard day at work. Nobody has shot at us.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless maybe you're a police officer.
Yeah.
But I'm saying
nobody
has shot at us.
Right. No matter how tough your day was at the office. Yeah. You're 100% right.
Exactly.
Well, and when you're in that moment of relaxation, you very much realize the truth of what I read on one of the shirts at mycigarshirts.com, which is you can't hurry up and smoke a cigar.
Whoever came up with that.
Genius, weren't they? Genius.
But that's
you're
the key.
100% right.
That's
you're 100% right. Yeah, it really is. And people, the anti-smoking forces who are out there, and there's some legitimate things that they say, but one of the things that they always miss is, to whatever degree there are health risks to smoking a cigar.
What about the mental wellness?
There is an advantage, some mental advantage to it. And
absolutely.
Man, there is nothing to me quite like that moment where you're just hanging out. Maybe you're by yourself. Maybe you're with a friend. You're just hanging out, and that relaxation really kind of takes hold. It's a big thing.
One of the good things, I guess we can say that, that's come out of COVID is we've been working very closely with a lot of our manufacturing partners. Those companies that, because they can't donate a cigar anymore in their, issues with dealing with the FDA, they're very, we can't really give you overstock. have all been very creative in how to help us.
Right.
You know, we mentioned Jurastate, but, you know, Hiram and Solomon, this is breaking news for your audience. There's been a few announcements out there, but this will be breaking news for everybody. Hiram and Solomon, which they make that, you know, the cigars, they're very much a boutique manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
If you note, they do a lot of work with Scottish Rites Temples and you know and that those organizations, but they are coming out with a cigar that will be specifically for Cigars for Warriors.
Oh, so you can have your own Cigars for Warriors stick.
It will be a Hiram and Solomon cigar specially put out for Cigars for Warriors, where proceeds from that will benefit our charity.
That's so awesome.
And it will be a limited release, and we're looking at donation centers being the first element of, you know, shops that support us being able to carry them. But that is just one. There are about 3 other ones that I will not talk about right now because we're still in development.
Because they're in development, yeah.
But we have multiples of these types of programs that we've been fortunate enough to have the wonderful people in this industry come to us and say, can I do something like this to help?
That's
nice.
One of the things that is so awesome about the cigar industry is I think it is a very giving industry. We talk to guys from cigar companies all the time, and they talk about how they're friendly with their competitors. They get together
it's
and
very inclusive.
Yes,
group of
it really is. They get together and do things and get involved in things
Smoke
like
cigars,
Cigars for
smoke
Warriors,
each
and they
other's
smoke each
cigars.
other's cigars. Yeah, Trey. One of the things that really important, I think, for us to ask you is there a space at the Cigars for Warriors website where I can go look and find a participating donation center store, a shop in my area that has a Cigars for Warriors donation area?
Yes, and I will tell everybody that we're an all-volunteer organization, so check your local shop anyway.
Right.
But we try to keep that list as up-to-date as possible, as this is kind of wood.
Yeah.
We try to be as – but again, nobody –
But if I go and look there and see a store in my area,
right.
I know that I can go there and donate cigars, and that's an important thing.
Well, and that's what we tell everybody is online you can donate cash. Mm-hmm. We give you the address. You can even gather up cigars. We've been doing these virtual, you know, clean out your locker kind of, clean out your humidor, where, you know, we've got the address. It's in Ocala, Florida. That's our main distribution point.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually mail cigars, you know, throw them in a one-rate postal box and mail them to us. We'll get them at that address.
How do these cigars that I put into a donation humidor or a donation box at a local store, how do those get to you? Does the store ship them?
Yes.
Okay. So the stores, and this is, you know, again, this is a thing you can do to not only support Cigars for Warriors and support the men and the women in the military, but if you go to these stores that are involved in that, they're shipping these cigars that you donate at their own cost to Cigars for Warriors. So, again, I just love supporting people who support great things.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's a really awesome thing to be able to do. All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back, and when we come back, it's time to play Hops Against Humanity. We'll be tasting an IPA that I have a sense it may be something I like. I don't know about you guys. We'll see. We'll see how we do. But it's from a great brewery in Dallas called Steam Theory Brewing, and we'll be right back with that and more about the legal situation of the cigar industry with our legal expert Trey Boring on Smoking and Toasting number 199.
Nice.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. This is the program that is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com, the coolest shirts for cigar fans, all starting under $20. MyCigarShirts.com, because cigars. Yeah. Welcome back to the show. Ian's going to open up a little Hops Against Humanity while I share this with you. It's a list, and Ian, you know how I love lists.
You are.
You're
very high fidelity like that.
I'm a listophile, I suppose. Wasn't
that the movie?
Yeah, that's right. Everybody was making lists. Yes,
or 5 lists
yes. And I do love lists. Some of my favorite videos to watch on YouTube are the Watch Mojo lists where they just do a top 10 or a top 20 of something, and it's absolutely awesome.
I watched one that was hilarious. It was like top 10 stupidest lyrics ever.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's great. I really enjoy those. Those are the best time killers because they're all about 10, 15 minutes long, and they're really well done, well written. So props to Watch Mojo. Ian, this is a list of the 35 most successful U.S. craft breweries. So with successful, it's based on their sales and how they compete in the general marketplace. So it isn't necessarily a comment on the quality of the beer, although one would guess that if it is craft beer, it's going to have to be reasonably good to be successful because, I mean, you don't have to necessarily be all that good to be a successful mainstream beer. But if you're
no, you just have to tell people that it's good.
That's right. You tell them, they'll believe it. That's the plan. But as far as craft breweries go, the most successful ones in the U.S., starting at number 35 out of Frederick, Maryland, the Flying Dog Brewery, which we've had some of their beers. They're quite good.
Yeah, Flying Dog used to make a barley wine called Horn Dog.
Yes.
I absolutely love that beer. And then it just disappeared one day. I don't know what they...
Maybe it was just a limited time thing. Maybe it wasn't
so good. I used to buy it all the time.
All right, we'll keep our eyes open.
10 years ago.
We'll keep our eyes open to see if they ever come back out with Horn Dog again.
12 years.
Surly Brewing Company out of Minneapolis is number 34. I will admit I've not had any of their beers, but that would be one to look for. Out of Seattle, Georgetown Brewing Company, been around since 2002. They billed themselves as the largest draft-only brewery in America until 2017 when they started selling some cans and bottles. But I'll have to keep an eye out, see if I can get some of those. Gordon Biersch Brewing Company, which is headquartered in San Jose, although they have their brew pub restaurants around different parts of the country. I've been to their
I think there's one
Las
in
Vegas location.
right?
Yeah, I've been to that one, and it's actually quite. I actually enjoyed the beer there very much. Three Floyds is number 31. They're out of Munster, Indiana,
make great beer.
and they do make great beer. Narragansett Brewing Company from Pawtucket, Rhode Island, is 30. At 29, the 21st Amendment Brewery from San Leandro, California. Allagash from Portland, Maine comes in at number 28.
Awesome.
They are very good. Troggs Independent Brewing from Hershey, Pennsylvania is at 27. So Hershey, Pennsylvania.
The Troganator.
Known not only for the is it Trogs? Did I pronounce it?
Yeah.
It's Trogs. Known not only for the great chocolate but also for some great beer.
The Troganators, they're Doppelbock. It's so good.
Rheingeist Brewery in Cincinnati is at 26. August Shell out of New Ulm, Minnesota is at 25. At number 24, out of Covington, Louisiana, brewery we didn't mention earlier, the Abita Brewing Company, and they are very successful. They've been great at getting distribution for
Turbo Dog.
Right. Turbo Dog
is so good.
Great Lakes Brewing Company out of Cleveland at 23. Alaskan Brewing Company at 22 from Juneau, Alaska. Summit Brewing Company out of St. Paul, Minnesota at 21. Stevens Point from Stevens Point, Wisconsin is at 20. At number 19, all of us are familiar with Odell Brewing Company out of Fort Collins, Colorado.
Man, that 90 shilling is awesome.
Oh, the 90 shilling is great. I just love...
Their APA is good.
Yeah, their APA, the drum roll is wonderful. And I just love the limited release IPAs that they come out with. Some of them are just... Hop Picker is great. They've got some
You're at what
wonderful...
Number what right now?
That was number 19.
Number 19. Have you taken a sip of this beer yet?
No. Have you?
I have.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Hops Against Humanity.
I want to see what you say about it. Mm-hmm. I will tell you, I love the big hop monster on the
the
can. That's pretty fun.
So I'm going to tell you that my response to this beer is it's exactly what I expected it to be, and I love it for what it is. Now, I will say my favorite IPAs are usually not quite this hop forward and bitter. But there are times, I think I mentioned last week that I'd had the Valkyrie double IPA from our friends at Southern Star. And it was very much like this in terms of its hop forwardness. But I am guessing this is not going to be to your palate and probably not to yours because of the pretty intense hop explosion that you get on the tongue.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's not a beer I would pick to drink all the time. I will say for it being so hop forward, there's a little bit of, on my tongue, a little bit of a citrusy kind of finish on the back end.
There's definitely some citra hops working in this.
That to me, it doesn't bother me for the tasting.
Okay.
But it's still probably because I'm just not that hop forward a person it's not to my palate.
Ian?
So I like the nose on this.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a really pretty floral smell.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
In a hoppy way. It's really nice. I like the initial burst of flavor on this. And then everything after that reminds me of, now I feel like I got bits of pine cones stuck in my teeth.
Well, this is what you're talking about. It's that resiny hop.
It's very resiny.
That
very
is
pine cone.
And
very,
this is to me is one of those IPAs that if you are an IPA lover, you think this is incredible. If you are not an IPA lover, it's one of the beers that you might point to say this is why I don't like IPAs.
Yeah,
it's just a straight split.
And they come
on
out
this,
and
this
say
hoppiness.
they come out and say, "Hey, this is as West Coast as it can be." It says,
"Well, if you're calling your beer hops against humanity,
yeah.
I think you're serving a pretty good warning."
It says
that
the only
this is not
crime
going to be
associated with this IPA is if you put it back on the shelf. Let's unleash this monster of a West Coast style IPA that will send you screaming when you run out. Steam Theory is a full spectrum brewery with a penchant for traditional styles. We look to the past. We look to the past. That's a weird way to put it.
I don't know what that means.
For our inspiration. This is also at 7.3%. There's some likable stuff about this, but I would pass on this. This is way too West Coast style for me. This is exactly what I don't generally like in an IPA. But I've had West Coast IPAs that I really, really like that have a little more body and a little less of that resiny aftertaste. And again, this is my taste on it. So
what I'm going to say about this is that I really like it, but I like it for what it is. When I'm in the mood for this kind of an IPA, this is one that I would reach for. But I'll also mention because I look at some of the beer forums online and stuff. There are a number of IPA fans that this is exactly what they're looking for.
Have you heard the term palate wrecker?
Yeah, this could be a bit of a palate wrecker.
Oh, yeah.
Do not try to pair this with a cigar. It will not work. No, and I say that as a lover of both IPAs and cigars.
Yeah, this would ruin also. If you use dip, it would ruin that.
But I will tell you, this is the kind of IPA that I would enjoy for my last IPA of the night. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to worry about it getting in the way of anything else that you're going to be trying to taste. You're going to just enjoy it for the hoppy monster that it is. Hops against humanity.
It is a hoppy monster.
And Steam Theory, by the way, I think this is the first of their beers we've tried. I would be really interested to try some of their other styles too.
There's a quality level that you can taste in here. I just don't like the flavor outcome. That's just. And again, that's a my personal taste thing. So.
Yeah, it's a palate thing.
Yeah,
it's like cigars. You get people argue about, I hated that cigar.
Right.
I loved it.
There's some people who don't love a full-bodied cigar, for example. They want something a little milder. I think of my buddy Dave. His son Sam is a huge cigar fan.
Yeah.
But he loves Connecticut wrappers and mild cigars. That's just what his palate really enjoys, and that's what he wants. I'll give him a fuller-bodied cigar every once in a while, and he'll smoke it. But he always goes back.
I find it hard to grab a cigar that's not a Maduro.
I know.
a
Maduro or a Habano or a sun-grown leaf. Usually, I'm going back to our list at number 18, the Minhas Craft Brewery out of Monroe, Wisconsin. Are you familiar with that one?
I never heard that one.
I know you know some of the breweries from that area. At number 17, one I am very familiar with is Harpoon Brewery out of Boston. Mm-hmm. Not only familiar because we've had their beers here, but I spent a whole lot of time drinking Harpoon when I lived in
Harpoon's
the Boston
one
area.
of those that's been around a long time, too. Like,
they were
one of the earlier.
Yeah, they weren't as early as Boston Beer Company, Sam Adams, but they were very early, and they were really a thing. I remember I told you this. I moved a number of years ago from Houston, Texas to Boston, Massachusetts, and I quickly noticed that where in Houston you would go to a bar and everybody had Shiner Bock on tap, when you went to a bar in Boston, everybody had Harpoon IPA on tap. And that was actually when I fell in love with IPAs. I was not an IPA drinker before that, but it was everywhere and it was cold and you would get a glass and try it. And before long I was like this beer is amazing. And that's what really kind of started me down the path to enjoying IPAs.
But the Harpoon IPA is a really good IPA.
It really is. Their IPA is a classic, and they also make a really good coffee porter that they co-brand with Dunkin' Donuts, which is another Boston-based business that is everywhere. Anyway, everything they do that I've tried is really good, and do not sleep on the Harpoon Winter Warmer. It is a thing of beauty. Nice. So if you see that around, grab some of it. FX Matt Brewing Company, which is Saranac. You may have seen Saranac is their beer brand name. They're out of Utica, New York. They're at number 16. New Glarus Brewing Company.
Isn't there a Utica Brewing too?
I believe there is.
Yeah, I believe there is. Sorry, go ahead.
New Glarus Brewing Company out of New Glarus, Wisconsin is 15. At 14 is Sweetwater. We see Sweetwater on the shelves here in the greater Houston area.
I want to buy their beers more, but I don't like their marketing. Like, it looks
the fish jumping out of the water?
Yeah, just their cans look so almost
Well, they are very active. They're out of Atlanta, and they're hugely active in the conservation movement. So that's why you always see that kind of artwork on their cans and stuff. They also, if I'm not mistaken, are the ones that do a beer I just have not been able to develop a taste for, which is that 420, which actually has a cannabis in it, and it's just like, that's a smell that I don't mind. But I don't know if I want it in my IPA.
The flavor,
I just haven't come to terms with that yet. Some people love it, though.
There are hoppy IPAs that have a little of that in it. Like,
absolutely.
Not added in, but just happen to have
a little of that aroma
smell,
to them.
That aroma.
At number 13, I know you know these guys, Ian, the incredibly creative Dogfish Head Craft Brewery out of Milton, Delaware, recently acquired by Boston Beer, Sam Adams. At number 12, Brooklyn Brewery from Brooklyn, New York. We've had Brooklyn a number of their great beers. At 11, Deschutes Brewery out of Bend, Oregon.
Great brewery,
awesome beers. Artisanal Brewing Ventures out of Downingtown, Pennsylvania, and Lakewood and Brooklyn, New York is at 10.
Don't know that.
Now, the Downingtown, Pennsylvania brewery I'm familiar with is Victory.
Yeah.
And we've had a number of their beers on the show as well. At number 9, we all know Stone Brewing out of Escondido, California. The Stone Pale Ale, which they still produce, was the first beer they made when they started in 1996.
The Stone IPAs are some of the best out there, and they make a few that are just too IPA for me, too West Coast IPA for me. But in general, I love almost everything.
But the quality level of what they do is just outstanding. A craft beer collective formed in 2015 is the company that comes in at number 18. It's Canarchy, and Canarchy is composed of Oscar Blues, Cigar City Brewing out of Tampa, Squatters Craft Beer, Wasatch Brewery, which is out of
I love all
Utah,
of those.
Deep Ellum Brewing out of Dallas, Perrin Brewing Company, and Three Weavers Brewing Company.
I don't know the last two.
So now you're talking about Perrin has a blonde porter ale with chocolate that apparently is very popular, and of course Cigar City has the Hialeah IPA, which is
and Maduro,
really
their brown ale.
Their brown Maduro is
good.
just great. At number 7, Ian, you are familiar with this one from Comstock, Michigan, Bell's Brewery.
I love Bell's.
They
Big fan.
just make great beer.
Big fan.
Gambrinus comes in at number 6, and it comes in. Gambrinus is actually an importing company. They import a number of beers into the United States that are made in other countries, but they also are the company that gives us 2 beers you may have heard of. One is called Trumer, which is from Austria, and the other is a little place from Shiner, Texas, the Spetzel Brewery, Shiner Beer. So Shiner itself sells so well around the country that it propels Gambrinus into the number 6 spot.
You can actually get Shiner in International Falls, Minnesota.
Oh, it's amazing.
That's
the places
crazy.
that I've actually been able to see and buy a Shiner. Duvel Murtgott at number 5. They're from Paso Robles, California, and also from Kansas City, Missouri, and Cooperstown, New York. They own Boulevard Brewing in Missouri. They own Firestone Walker Brewing in California, and Brewery Omegang in New York.
Nice.
All three very well-respected, awesome craft breweries.
And very different from each other as well.
Yes, which is very cool. They're all very, very different in terms of the styles that they specialize in. At number 4, out of Fort Collins, Colorado, and San Francisco, the New Belgium Brewing Company. They were bought late last year by Lion Little World Beverages, which is a subsidiary of Kirin, but they continue. Sierra Nevada is number 3. Mm-hmm. Boston Beer Company is number 2.
Wow.
That's Sam Adams.
Yeah.
Wow.
And guess who's number 1? DG Yingling and Son Incorporated.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize they were bigger than.
They are the oldest brewery in the United States, I believe, and they are out of Pottsville, Pennsylvania, and just in terms of volume, the biggest craft brewery,
Wow, I didn't realize they were bigger than Boston Brew Works.
Yep. And so this is all from a list that was in USA Today, and that was kind of fun to go through.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's fun. It's especially fun to go through while we're drinking some good beers here while we're at it. All right, let's take a quick break. I want to talk about legal stuff when we come back. Trey, there's been some great developments this week, and I'd love for you to lay it out for us in layman's terms when we return.
Perfect.
Plus, it'll be time for some gin. The Gastro Gin Dutch Dry Gin will be next on our tasting list, and so we're looking forward to checking that out. It's Smoking and Toasting, and we appreciate you guys checking us out. We'll be right back. Makes me feel like I'm part of the music, you know? Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, and we are so thrilled to have you guys on show number 199.
199. That's crazy. No one's stopped us yet.
Halfway to 200. I think it's safe to say that no one has stopped us yet.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. And that'll piss somebody off, but, you know, they're going to just have to deal with it. Our show is brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com. Great cigar lover T-shirts at MyCigarShirts.com, starting under $20. They are a supporter of Smoking and Toasting, so please support them. We appreciate it. Welcome back to the show. We're going to be tasting some gin. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, we do have drinking news today, and it will lead off our final segment here after this. But we're going to taste some gin, and so maybe, Ian, while you take a look at this bottle here and tell us what we're going to be tasting and pour some samples of this, we'll get Trey to bring us up to speed on our legal issues for cigar lovers. This is something that I picked up here. I've never seen this gin before, but I picked it up this last week. It looked really interesting and came recommended from the guy that was helping me out at Specs. I told him, I'm looking for something from smaller distillery, something craft, something very interesting. Kind of told him about ones that I liked, and he asked if I tried this, and I said no. So he pointed me towards it and said that he really, really loved it. His comment was that you got the botanicals in it, but it wasn't just like drinking a cup of lavender. So I said, okay, I'm down, because I'm not big on the lavender taste, but I do enjoy, the floralness of gin. So while Ian's pouring that and we're passing those around for tasting, Trey, bring us up to speed. The last time we had you on, the cigar industry, retailers, manufacturers, and fans of premium cigars were just completely under assault by the government. The FDA had been put in charge of regulating cigars, including premium cigars, and their ongoing efforts to try to curb teen smoking and underage smoking were extending these very onerous regulations all the way into the premium cigar industry, which does not suffer from teen smoking and underage smoking, and in almost all cases. But yet these regulations were going to be so tough to deal with that I was seeing, some estimates that it was going to put even as many as a third of small cigar retailers out of business, and was going to put a lot of boutique cigar companies out of business. There have been some better turns as the legislation was approved and put into effect. Tell me if I'm correct on this, but had not actually begun to be enforced yet. Am I saying that in the
Correct.
right way?
So where all this comes from is that the Ted Kennedy's last hoorah was passing the Tobacco Control Act, and when he got that through, FDA took control of all tobacco. Okay. And obviously they started with cigarettes. That's where they started hammering cigarettes. They began a few years ago to start talking about what they wanted to do for premium cigars, which is really what motivated a lot of the grassroots efforts that Cigar Rights of America, the trade in and of itself, the cigar industry began to battle. And what we have found is we've really tried to push legislation. In fact, from a grassroots perspective, you can still fill out the FDA petition for your senators and your congressmen. Go to the cigarrights.org website, CRA's website. You can look us up online and do follow through to do your petitions, because we still have a hope that at some point Congress will actually start working. And
good luck with that.
I know. And if they do, there's this legislation that we can try to be able to partner and ride on something else that would exempt premium cigars from the control.
That would be the best case scenario.
Best case scenario
for premium cigars is to be completely exempted from this legislation, which isn't really designed to be about premium cigars anyway.
No, it's designed to impact youth smoking. That was the whole premise. Go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you've done a lot of festivals and events. How many times out of all the events over the years have you turned away kids who are trying to get in under 18?
Never.
Okay, there you go.
It's
that's pretty amazing.
Kids aren't walking into a cigar shop to spend. We talked about $9 cigars.
Yeah.
These kids
Are
don't.
you kidding me?
What teenage kid's going to walk in to buy a $9 cigar?
No.
They're
going to buy a little pack of cheapos at the convenience store,
right?
If they're going to try to do it.
If they're going to try to do it.
This shouldn't be about premium cigars. It's what the cigar industry has held all along.
Correct. That's been our push all along. And so what has happened is that the industry with Cigar Rights of America, which is the consumer organization, came together and started the lawsuit a few years ago about the deeming regulations. Now, we've had two major victories within the legal premise.
Right.
The first one was, don't ask me how many months ago, because I'm
several
over 50 in my brain.
But several
months ago, we won the limitation on the implementation of the warning bands.
Right.
The warning labels.
The warning labels were going to have to be
30% of the box.
Yeah, almost a third of the cigar's packaging.
We've got a victory there through this legal avenue, which is our only avenue because, again, you can't get Congress to actually work. So, this is our avenue. Yesterday, if you follow many of the cigar blogs or, online, there was a lot of press coming out about this yesterday. The cigar industry scored its second major victory, which is an indefinite hold on what they call the substantial equivalency. This is where the boutique cigar manufacturers were going to have to submit blends to get them graded and adjust, just like cigarette folks have to do before they introduce new cigarettes, which, from our perspective as an industry, small boutique guy, because we never knew, they hadn't implemented anything, we didn't know what the cost was going to be.
Right.
So how could you get a local manufacturer? Talk about here in Houston, guys that are represented in the cigar industry. Cabal Cigars, little small, operation, great cigars. But how was he going to battle deeming these regulations? Right.
Because and there was such an arbitrary nature to the whole process. Anyway, they aren't saying it has to be only so much of this or only so much of that. You just had to submit them and wait.
Right. And so that's what the victory yesterday is about, is indefinitely putting that process on hold.
So indefinitely on hold, what does that mean exactly?
Well, until the next challenge comes up. The FDA can certainly appeal these decisions and, things like that, and the battle can continue. They can go back and further refine or define in the regulations the elements that the judge picked out that were not, viable.
Right.
They can address those and then try to come back at it.
But that process is going to take several years at the soonest, right? If they do?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how motivated some staff members at the FDA are. And right now, well,
I'm not thinking there's a lot of motivated staff members at the FDA. Maybe I'm wrong.
In my daily life, in my regular job, I deal with the FDA a lot on importation and rules and regulations. And I will tell you that they have some very wonderful people. It's not a slam against people that work for the FDA. There's very wonderful people that work there. But they have a few that take their saddle that they've mounted on the horse of bureaucracy and ride it with pride. So
well said.
There are still openings. This is a great victory. It is a victory that we should all be proud of and we all should all be happy about. But it never means the fight is over.
Right.
And that's why we need grassroots involvement. We need people that are willing to write those petitions, because those petitions help us in cases like this where, if the FDA starts getting a lot of phone calls from congressmen and senators going, hey, I'm getting a lot of response on these things, put it lower on your priority list.
Right.
People tend to listen.
And what I think is important is to realize the zeal and the fervor of certain anti-smoking groups who may be well-intentioned, but who don't understand the fact that this shouldn't apply to premium cigars. So they're out beating the drum on a regular basis using very powerful lobbyist groups and people that have the ears of the senators and the congressmen, and they are really pushing hard. And again, I'm not really faulting the cause of their efforts, but what they're not doing is stopping to look at what really should be addressed and what really is not a problem. And by kind of throwing this incredibly wide net, they have really detrimental it has really detrimental effects if these laws go into place and are enforced on premium cigars. It will make it harder for cigar smokers to find new and interesting cigars. It'll make them more expensive when you do get them. There's just no doubt about it. And look, as cigar smokers are already taxed far more than the average product in America.
Those things get lumped together so bad. It's almost to the ridiculous point of if they came out with new legislation about motorcycles, but all that has to apply to bicycles too.
Correct.
Because they work the same way.
That's a great analogy.
No, they don't.
Analogy. Yeah.
But they kind of look the same,
right? And they both have two wheels.
They both have two wheels. It's very, very much.
Think about what we had to do when scooters became more street legal, right?
Yeah.
That was sort of that whole deal is how did states deal with scooters versus motorcycles, and do the same rules and laws apply?
Yeah.
What was the difference? But this is, and I'm about to give you Trey's opinion and Trey's opinion only. It does not represent the opinion of CRA, CFW, anybody else. But I think the best thing that ever happened to us was the increase in vape usage with teenagers, because it took a focus at the FDA and at other organizations off of cigars.
Interesting, because I would have thought that was adding to the problem, because it made people that much more crazy about the whole process. But you're
think
saying
about the money they're spending now. Yes, think about the money they're spending now on anti-vape ads. And I'm not a supporter of vape. I'm not, again, I'm just saying, look at all what they're doing. Anti-vape ads, they're spending millions of dollars on that educational program. Where could that money have been spent if vaping didn't come along? It might be spent on us. And we are a niche industry. This industry is not millions and millions and millions and millions of people. Our market is not that large. We can be sold out by government officials very quickly because we are still a community-driven product, not a global-driven product.
Right.
Meaning it's not, cigar smoking is not as popular as beer drinking. It's not as popular, and so the fact that another evil came along, I'll put it in air quotes.
No, I get it.
Another evil came along. I personally, my opinion only, think that helped us a little bit, because where would that money go? They could certainly spend that money on an ad campaign to educate voters.
It's better for them to have something to do than not.
Right.
So
right.
That's
at least they're focused on a different area.
Give them a big problem to deal with,
right.
versus a bunch of little problems that they start paying attention to.
It's a good.
But
thing.
So like I said, we've had some good things. The one thing, in fact, the folks at CRA, I'd asked them for a few points they wanted to bring up as soon as I was coming, and the main thing they talked about was, again, still be active if you're out there with your grassroots. Join the organization if you're not a member.
Right.
It's a member-driven organization. It is consumer-driven. And then the other thing is also be aware of what's going on at your local and state level. There are smoking bans continually being pitched across the country.
Everywhere.
At a local and state level. Use your grassroots effects there. Keep a watch on those. And be active when those things come up.
If you live in a state other than California, you don't know what a smoking ban is really like, because Ian has, I thought, the best summation of the state of California smoking policy that I've ever heard. Ian, do you remember what it was?
Yeah, you can smoke anywhere you want as long as it's not inside or outside.
Yeah, that's basically the smoking policy in California.
Yeah.
Well, it's really encouraging to get good news, because it seemed like for so long, anytime we would talk about anything to do with legal stuff in the cigar industry on the show, Ian, it seemed like it was just bad news after bad news. This hasn't been proposed and this has been passed. So it's great to get good news. But Trey, I hear what you're saying. We can't let up our efforts to continue to allow groups like CRA to represent us and really make sure that we can't take our foot off the gas now.
Here's the bottom line
it's
about
kind of like
CRA.
you're in the fourth quarter of the game and your team just took the lead, but there's still time on the clock. You can't stop playing.
Here's the thing about CRA. CRA is out there working so you can smoke your cigar.
Right.
They're working very specifically for you personally.
Right.
So that you can smoke your cigar, and that's just the way you got to look at it.
Right.
They wouldn't exist if they weren't necessary. This is not like a hey, let's just get together and create some kind of political thing.
They are your representative in this fight, and it's an important fight if you're a fan of cigars. It really is. Cigarrights.org.
Yeah.
And that's where you go to find out more about what's going on. And very importantly, if you're not a member, we strongly encourage, if you love cigars, this is a group you should be a member of. It's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really is. Ian, you've poured the gin, and I'm fighting off a sneeze here. So if I turn away momentarily, I don't know if it's gonna happen or not. But if I turn away momentarily,
we're all leaving the room.
That's right. I know. That's the thing. It scares everybody. All you have to
people used to cough to cover up a fart?
Yes.
Now it's the other way around.
Oh, I was going to say, it used to be if you wanted to clear a crowded room, you could fart. Now all you have to do is cough. Right. Boom. People are out of there like crazy. Tell us about the gin, Ian. This is a very interesting looking bottle.
This is the Gastro Gin. I love the label with the skull with the top hat and the crossed chef knives underneath it. Dutch Dry Gin. I'm sure there's a reason for that. And this has got like little junipers and other plants on here going on.
Juniper being the
botanicals.
big, the big botanical. Yep.
So I want to talk about the taste. You guys have both tried this. I want to talk about lemon or lemongrass being huge on this, and pepper.
It is not, as my friend at the store where I bought this at Specs down in Midtown Houston pointed out, it is not a lavender bomb.
No.
I would not. I just don't really have a big appreciation for that flavor. But there is some citrusy lemon in here.
Very citrusy
and
lemon.
lots of floral. I'm not as good with flowers to know which ones I'm thinking of. But
I'm trying to think of the flavor I'm getting off of it, but it is not.
It really is enjoyable.
So I'm sitting here picking at it because I actually had some of this earlier. Like dandelion and rose petal. A little bit.
Okay, good. See,
the rose petal kind of
underlying. Yeah, there is definitely a little bit of a rose petal vibe there. But I'll tell you what, this is really delicious. And, I'm not as big a fan of gin as I am of some other spirits, but this is one I could really enjoy just sipping. And I would bet you this would make an excellent martini.
Well, so I was reading the back of this, and this backs up with this citrus, huge citrus with a slight pepper on it. It says, as long as I can remember, my drink of choice has been gin and tonic. I could see this being
a great gin and tonic. Yeah,
badass gin and tonic gin. The combination of botanicals, a tonic, and the right garnish has sparked my creativity and culminating the perfect choice before any culinary experience. In search of the perfect gin and tonic, I came along a distillery which has been making Genevers and gin. Genevers? Mm-hmm. Genevers. Is that what it is? And gin since 1658. Together we ventured out in pursuit of a gin that would captivate my favorite flavors, ones that are fresh, real, and genuine. Hereby, my exquisite and daring mix of various peppers grown in every corner of the world, carefully blended with citrus notes and fennel.
Fennel, there you go.
Fennel's the one that we weren't missing. Yep. All this based on a solid mix of gin-style botanicals. This gin will change your palate. The aftertaste on this really is dandelion.
Yeah,
like,
it really is. It really is.
It's
I tell you what, I think it's very good, and I think it would make a great gin and tonic. And I don't even know how to make one of these, but I've decided that the next cocktail I'm going to learn to make is the slow gin fizz, just because it's the coolest name of like any cocktail in the world. I hear the name and I just want one. I don't even know what's in it.
I want you to tell me how that turns out.
Okay, I'm sure it'll be a disaster.
Oh, I've actually made a gin fizz before.
And how did it go?
Well, let me just tell you. I want you to tell me how it works out for you.
Okay.
Let's see how your arms feel.
Speaking of gin, by the way, you know that George Clooney's tequila, Casamigos, was acquired by Diageo, one of the big spirits companies, for a great deal of money. Diageo has now picked up Aviation Gin, which is owned at least in part by actor Ryan Reynolds.
Right.
And the deal...
That was the one that was on the... what was
been a
TV show that was it was on?
He's been a lot. I know him more from movies, but he's been in a lot of stuff, Ryan Reynolds. But didn't he do the Green Lantern movie that was such a bomb?
Oh, that was a terrible movie.
But he's been in some other good stuff, too.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this, the deal could be worth up to $610 million.
Wow.
Wow. It is the second largest super premium gin in the United States.
Entourage. Isn't that the one that they used on Entourage all the time?
No, that was a tequila.
Yes, they used Avion tequila.
Oh, Avion. Okay, sorry.
And Avion tequila is pretty good, I will say. I'm sure that they worked out a marketing deal with the Entourage show to be the
I've actually brought it on the show.
But it's actually really good. But anyway, so Ryan Reynolds making a little money during the pandemic. He may not be acting in any movies, but he's doing all right.
I mean, he did the Deadpool.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. But
those are hilarious.
Definitely don't cry
and
for
in
me,
very
Ryan
bad
Reynolds.
taste.
Yes, yes, but a lot of fun. Well, this is good. All right, let's come back. Let's take a break and come back. We'll enjoy the rest of this gin during the break. But when we return, it's time for the Black is Beautiful Imperial Stout, the original one from San Antonio, from Weathered Souls Brewing. And, as we love to do, the return of Drinking News.
Drinking News.
Yeah, it's all coming up in segment number 5. It's Smoking and Toasting. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. This is the program that's all about fine spirits, craft beer, and hand-rolled cigars. We're glad to have you on with us for show number 199, and we are brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com. Check them out. They support Smoking and Toasting, so please support them. We would appreciate it. Before we get into a little Black is Beautiful Imperial Stout, it's time for Drinking News.
Drinking News. Drinking News. Now it's time for Drinking News.
Aren't you glad Ian's saying that instead of me? I am. Drinking News, and he's working on our Drinking News jingle.
It'll happen eventually.
Maybe you could
after 200.
Maybe you could bring it in for 200. I'm just saying.
After 200.
After 200. All right. Drinking News, as those of you who are regular listeners or viewers of the show know, is where we try to share a story with you that may or may not be about drinking, but may be most properly enjoyed if you are drinking. And certainly we've started that here, so I think it's time for today's Drinking News. A city council meeting. We've all had to do Zoom.
Wait
meetings,
a second.
right?
This story didn't start with a Florida
No,
man.
it didn't. It started, but let's say we should have started this by saying a Rio de Janeiro couple. So that's how I should have started the story, because that's where we're headed. But you guys have all had to do. I know you're doing guitar lessons on Zoom, right?
Yes,
for some of your students. Have you had to do Zoom conference meetings, Trey?
I was doing one just before the show.
Okay, so there you go. So that's how it works. So we've all had to use Zoom during the pandemic to communicate and do some of our meetings, and this is no exception for the city council in Rio de Janeiro. However, during a recent Zoom city council meeting in Rio de Janeiro, the participants in the meeting got to view something a little bit unusual, because apparently one participant who had been involved early on forgot to turn off their computer and Zoom camera, and the entire meeting got to watch a couple having sex on the Zoom feed during the city council meeting. We actually have, I will tell you, is not indecent, but you can kind of see sort of what's going on in the Zoom chat here.
That looks like a cigar.
Lionel Brazola continued the meetings. He's the chairperson of the city council. Continued the meetings, and despite the scenes in the background,
look at the look on everyone's face.
That's why this is beautiful. It's not so much, you can't really see that much of what's going on with the couple, but the look on everyone's face is priceless. Because imagine this was video, so there was motion. So you could really tell what was going down. The counselors reportedly noticed but decided not to discuss the matter at hand, and it was a meeting chaired by a member of the Socialism and Liberty Party, Lionel Brazola, who continued the discussion despite what was happening on the video feed. So anyway, it was really all about how to guarantee food for students in the municipal system during the pandemic, but there was just a little extra.
Somebody
going
was
on.
feeling amorous.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, this we've shared with you that there's a guy that has these farm animals that are kind of wacky, like a donkey and a chicken, that he will use. If you pay him $50, he'll interrupt he'll crash your Zoom call like a photobomb. You give him the information, he waits until your call starts, and then a donkey appears going, which I think I may like this better, actually. This may be even more interesting. So here's to that. Here's to drinking news. When Urban South was on the show, Urban South Brewery from the greater Houston area was on the show, we tasted their Black is Beautiful Imperial Stout, and it was based on the original recipe, which came out of Weathered Souls Brewing in San Antonio. Now we've gotten our hands on a very nice large can of the Weathered Souls Imperial Stout, and hopefully, Ian, the gin that we had in the last segment kind of cleansed your palate of the hoppiness of the IPA, so that you can enjoy this and really get a sense for it. Any first reaction? I saw you take a sip.
It's delicious and bitter. It's bitter, very coffee bitter.
Right. Not in a hop bitter kind of way, but it actually strikes me with a little more of the coffee bitterness than I remember from the Urban South version.
I'm not a must-have coffee no matter what drinker. Like, I know a lot of people like that, but I like coffee and I like good coffee. And when I drink coffee, I drink it black.
Right.
Straight black.
And this is black coffee.
Is
taste,
very black coffee finish on it.
Yeah, it really is.
And that kind of bitterness to it. There's a little sweet up front, but I like this a lot because I do like that coffee bitter kind of flavor overall.
Do you remember enough from when we sampled the Weathered Souls version?
If I remember correctly, it had a little coconut to it.
Yes,
and it had
that's right.
Almost a toasted marshmallow. There was a lot of sweetness on the end.
And just to correct myself, this is the Weathered Souls. The one I was talking about was Urban South, which we had a couple of weeks ago here on the show. But yeah, Theirs, I think, did have a little bit more sweetness to it. This one really lives in that dark.
No, this lives in that black coffee, dark roast coffee kind of area.
And it really is delicious. I mean, this is something that for a while we've been encouraging people to buy these if you find them, because it's it's great cost to support. It's good to see. There's been a great deal of noise about the craft beer industry not being as racially integrated as it probably should be. And I don't think it comes from a place of intent. I think it's just that a lot of white guys started doing home brewing and graduated it into into being an actual producing brewery. But I am really happy to see the inroads that are being made towards diversity in the craft beer industry, and in particular, the way that a number of brewers have embraced the Black is Beautiful beer, which I think not only is it delicious, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing to be a part of.
Yes.
So, you're a stout fan, are you not?
I am.
Yeah,
huge stout fan. Yeah, this is great. But again, it's great because of the coffee note of bitterness. Is again what I drink. I like when I drink my coffee. I like a straight black coffee, and so that element of it is really good. I think you could, which I don't know if I would have liked the other one, because if you added a lot of sweetness to this recipe, I think it changes your experience. And to me, this is like a true stout.
Yeah,
mm-hmm. Yeah, true coffee
there's
stout.
There's also in the very back, and especially on the retrohale, there's a little note of very burnt caramel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very burnt caramel in there.
Definitely on the retrohale, yes, for sure. But
not a lot of sweetness to it.
It is delicious. But yeah, so we have tried a lot of stouts on the show that, are German chocolate cake stout and things like that. This is definitely not about that.
No,
this is a straightforward
quite
coffee
possibly
stout.
One of the least sweet stouts that we've ever even had on the show.
I think you're right. It doesn't have any of the sort of dried fruit barley wine type notes to it. It is just
there's no raisin,
straight ahead imperial stout. Yeah. But it's good.
But I will tell you, if you were a fan of black coffee and you like that style of bitterness, this beer is outstanding.
If you've had Buried Hatchet, this would probably appeal to your
I
palate.
love Buried Hatchet.
Yeah. That'd be some good stout.
So
right there.
That's a good stout. Yes.
Cheers to Weathered Souls. And you know what? Once we get a little more able to travel and do some things, and we can take our show back on the road, Weathered Souls might be a fun road trip for us to go and do a show live from there and talk to those guys, and or we could invite them to come on the show if they're willing to make the drive from San Antonio to our studios. That might be
they come
fun.
to Houston from time to time,
sure,
right?
Sure.
They have to.
If no other reason than to visit their buddies at Urban South HTX.
That's right.
So that could be a good thing. Well, thank you, Weathered Souls, for starting this movement, and thank you for producing a delicious coffee stout. I also want to thank Trey Boring, our friend and legal expert. Trey is a member of both the Cigar Rights of America, CRA. You can find them online at cigarrights.org. That's where you can go and should go if you're not a member and you're a cigar fan. You should become a part of it. It's a great thing that you can do to help continue to protect your rights and our rights, all of our rights as people who love cigars. Trey's also a part of one of the coolest organizations I know, which is Cigars for Warriors, and the website for Cigars for Warriors is
cigarsforwarriors.org.
Okay, .org as well. So go there, find out what's going on with those guys. It's a good place to look and see if your favorite local cigar shop or a place close to you is a participating spot where you can go and donate cigars. But check out your local cigar shop anyway. And by the way, if they don't, tell them, hey, this would be a good idea. You should get involved in this.
Absolutely.
And help Cigars for Warriors out. I think that sending cigars to our servicemen, sometimes it's the little things. There's lots of things that we can do to support our men and women who put their lives on the line for our country on a regular basis. But sometimes the little things are actually the most appreciated.
You bet.
I can only imagine the excitement when a shipment of cigars arrives.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's got to be like one of the greatest
Follow us
days.
on Facebook, and you'll see the pictures.
That's awesome.
And
I
you
love
can just see the joy it brings. And we're also expanding. We've got a couple of coffee companies. We're trying to find other things that we can slip into the packages.
I love that.
We get a lot of cigar cutters, things like that. So, we're just trying to make their life a little better. They're out there defending our freedoms, make them a little as comfortable as we can.
Absolutely.
In a small,
and
representation.
we talked about it earlier. Downtime, got to be huge for people on the front line.
Absolutely.
Got to be. Well, thank you, Trey, for being on the show once again. We love having you, and you're always invited, of course. And I want to say thanks to Adam on the Wheels of Steel for making it all happen this week. Ian, this has been a fun one. And next week, it's just you and me as we do kind of the down low version of show number 200. But for those of you who are fans of beers in the,
next week will be the 200th show placeholder.
Yeah, well, but for those of you who are fans of beers that are like 15% and above, you may want to tune in next week because I have a feeling Elon's going to assault me with his beer selections. Plus, we'll be tasting some new whiskey and be doing a little bit of reminiscing about some of our favorite moments.
So a couple quick shout-outs. First off, I'd like to say that Brian says hi. He's been busy at work. He hasn't had a chance
I haven't heard from him in a while.
To get on.
Awesome.
He says he misses us terribly.
Oh, well, hopefully he'll be back with us soon.
Right. And then I might be leaning on my friend Josh for maybe some of next week's beers.
Awesome. That'll be fun. By the way, don't forget about our Smokin' and Toastin' virtual Smoke Fest. It will return on Zoom this coming Saturday, 2 p.m. Central Time, and all of the details and an easy link to join us for maybe a couple of 40-minute segments will be posted.
So
on
Bruce also pointed out that
well.
he has a paid subscription if we want to.
When we have Bruce,
he would loan us his hosting abilities.
Bruce
tonight.
Is awesome. Yes. One of our favorite listeners and viewers.
Yeah, he's a blast.
Bruce is great. Have a great week, everybody. Find the Black is Beautiful and buy a 4-pack if you can, and enjoy your week. We'll see you again next week for show number 200, the down low version of 200.
Cheers
and cheers, everybody.
Clink.
Cheers. Clink.
Clink. Elbow 5.
Sunshine is so good to you. That I'm supposed to talk about it. If you know something,
I saw him marking.
Did we do okay?
Oh, we did good. We did perfect. We did everything. I just, my thing is.